Hi, my name's Russell. I'm excited to tell you about a new project I've been working on called FlightFirstFPV. FlightFirstFPV is an FPV simulator. So, what is an FPV simulator? To explain that, I might need to explain what FPV is. FPV stands for first person view, and that basically describes flying, typically a drone, through the camera itself instead of watching it in the air. Now, a lot of people can do this with photography drones by flying it on a screen. Uh, those cameras are typically on a gimbal and they kind of are meant to be stabilized. These cameras are fixed and so they don't move as the drone moves. And what that does is it kind of gives you the feeling of flight. So flying these are incredibly fun, but they're also really hard. Imagine like when a kid first learns to drive a car, they're struggling with left, right, gas, and brake. So they only have two axes of control. When you're learning to fly one of these, you have four axes of control and they can go from 0 to 80 in like a quarter of a second. So it's incredibly challenging to learn. And if you're going to learn for the first time to fly these, actually flying a real one, you're going to crash, and you're going to crash a lot. The idea of a simulator is it lets you experience that without breaking anything. You can start over anytime you want. You can learn the controls. And it lets you experience the joy of flying, and it also lets you learn how to fly these. So why did I make this? I made this because I wanted to recreate the FPV experience in computer software. And I wanted to bring it to computer software that doesn't need a massive computer to run this. You don't need a $1,000 gaming PC to run this simulation. I've made some of the scenes in it intentionally very low polygon, so this thing can run fast on some pretty modest hardware. We are going to have some environments that are going to be more, shadows and rich textures and stuff like that. So not everyone will run on modest hardware, but I'm definitely making part of the game to run on very modest hardware. So the core of this project is always going to be free. I think if anybody wants to experience FPV flight, or if a pilot is getting ready to go to their first race, they should be able to go practice with no cost barrier. The only thing you need is this and currently a PC. It needs to be a controller with two axis gimbals, and it has to double as a PC controller. I think most of the new ones do. If you have a Spectrum or a Tyrannus, or I think even the DJI ones, double as PC game controllers. So if you have a modern RC controller, you have a controller that will work for this. I'll be doing a video later on tutorials and setup and how to map that to the controls in the game. When I first started this project, I kind of naively thought it was going to be a little easier than it actually was. I didn't necessarily know all the science behind it. But I knew that propellers make thrust and drag acts on the body, and that when you slow the propellers down, they can kind of act like a brake. And I figured that I could just kind of play around with the numbers enough to where I didn't really need to deep dive into the science. I was actually kind of wrong on that. I could get it sort of okay by just stabbing at it, but I actually needed to really dive into the aerodynamics of these, and especially these propellers, to make what I thought was a model that felt to me sort of realistic. So I don't have a background in aerodynamics. So the first thing I did when I started trying to tackle this problem was to go out and just kind of look at academic literature to see if there was anything out there that could help me. And luckily I came across this paper here. Is called Propeller Thrust and Drag in Forward Flight by Rajan Gill and Rafael D'Andrea. Now, I didn't really understand much of the paper when I first looked at it, but I did understand that the problem that they're trying to solve was the same one that I had, which is this. These propellers are pretty complex in the forces they generate. They don't just push, they don't just make a force in this direction. They also make drag. And the forces, the thrust and the drag that they make are depend on a lot of factors. It depends on how fast they're spinning, but it also depends on the airspeed, and it also depends on the angle at which the propellers are flying through the air. And so all those things go into making kind of a complex interaction. And really what you're doing is you're treating these propellers, or what they did in their model was to treat these propellers like wings. And basically you add up all the forces across all these little wings and all the little pieces of the wings, and that gives you the output forces that you need for the simulation. So it took me a little while to unpack this paper and really understand all what it's doing. You know, one thing that was clear immediately, you had to have good measurements of these. So you can measure their, obviously the length of the propeller, the width of it along the blade, and then you also had to measure the pitch, the pitch of the propeller from the side. And so to do that, that was a little harder to do. To do that, I made this little 3D printed rig right here, and I made all these different little wedges of different degrees and put them on here, and you can actually measure these propellers and get an idea of their angle and their sizes. So while you can measure a lot of things about a propeller, you can't measure everything. You can't measure the coefficients of lift and drag very easily. They gave some methods in the paper. They're kind of hard for a hobby project to do. So what I've basically done is I've used some public data from like Mini Quad Test Bench for understanding about how much lift a propeller should be generating at a certain RPM. The drag side of things and some of the other variables are harder to gather by methods like that. So it's just taken a lot of manual tuning. And I'm not the best pilot in the world. I'm a decent pilot. I'm an intermediate. But I'm definitely not flying at the high end of the throttle sticks like some of the other pilots out there. So as I go into the future with this project, I'm definitely looking to work with some pilots that are faster than me who could help me make this model even better. So the project's in open beta. All that means is that the project's far enough along that I think FPV pilots or people who want to experience FPV can use the simulator to get better. But it also means I'm still working on it. I'm going to continue to improve the flight model. I'm going to continue to improve the features of the simulator. And with that, let's just hop right in and take a look at it. So this is the home screen of the simulator. It does require an account to log in. It's free to sign up. Just go to FlightFirstFPV.com. Once you sign up, you'll have access to the installers. The installers are auto-patched, so every time you start the simulator, it's going to get the new version. The account also lets you save any custom courses you have, save your times on the leaderboard, and we're going to be adding new features that allow you to interact with friends and stuff in the future. So let's take a quick look at the settings. The first thing that pops up is going to be your controller. I'm going to do a separate video later on how to do controller setups and go over rates and things like that. Settings is mostly for camera stuff right now. You can adjust this angle to be, whatever your camera angle is, I would adjust this. If you're new, I would recommend starting at a lower camera angle, maybe like 15 or 20. For now, let's go with about 25. Now, this is where you actually set up the parameters of the drone. Right now, we've only have 4 propellers. So we've got a few race propellers, and this is what I've done a lot of my tuning with. And we have a few frames. We have a racing frame, and then just some freestyle frame options as well. Tell you what, we'll go with a freestyle frame for this first one. Audio is pretty simple. All right. So let's just hop right in. We're going to go just fly freestyle. That means there's no racing objectives. We can just fly around, and we'll take a look at this warehouse scene. When you first get in, you'll notice a few things. The menu's fairly simple. We don't have a lot of complex graphics or anything. On the bottom left, there's an indicator right now for frames per second. That's just going to be let you know if your computer is performing okay. As long as you're around 100, you should be fine. You can see down here, I'm up at close to 300, which is more than enough. But yeah, so this environment is one of our more complex ones right now. So you might need a little bit of a PC to do this. If you have a separate graphics card, you're probably going to be okay as long as it's fairly new. But we have some other ones we'll look at in a minute, like Race Day, where you could probably run that on a computer with just an integrated graphics card. So one thing I really wanted to recreate in this is the feeling of control you have when you're flying one of these. So you're not only able to go fast, but you're also able to kind of, have this real fine-tuned control and, have the power you need when you're ready to go as well. So it lets you go fast, but also hit tight little gaps. Well, I can't talk and fly at the same time, but there we go. So right now, it's just I've really focused on the aerodynamics. Their collisions are not realistic. That's something I'm going to be adding later. So right now, it's just really how the quad feels in the air. So crashes are not realistic at all, but it kind of makes it easy. You don't get stuck or anything. You can always just kind of roll the quad over if you crash or whatever and keep going. You can see over here we have our scoreboard. So when you're in freestyle mode, this scoreboard just shows a logo, but once in a race, you can actually see the times for your race as you're going. Let's take a quick look at that. So we'll hop out, go to race, go back to warehouse, and then I've just got one track set up. And so the way this track works is it's a consecutive lap. So right now it's 3 consecutive laps, and right now my best time is 112 seconds. So before we start the race, we'll ride over here to the scoreboard and take a look. Because this game hasn't went public yet, I'm the only one on the board. But hopefully, almost positively, somebody will beat my mediocre time here. But yeah, let's just give it a run and see. So we've got to put together 3 laps. I'm not sure I'm going to torture you with making me run 3 laps to get the time. But we'll just do a course. You'll see they light up green to let you know where the next obstacle you go to. If you go behind it or you're going the wrong way, it's nicely indicated with a red X, so you'll know you're going the wrong direction. Gates can be like more of these normal type racing gates, but we also have, you can set gates to be real life objects that you have to fly through as well. So these gates right now are currently, I think most of these are double size gates. So they're like 10 foot by 10 foot as opposed to the normal multi-GP 5 foot by 5 foot. I want to design this course to be a little bit of a beginner course. So I think that's a 5 foot gate, but I think some of them are 10 foot gates. I'm actually using the scoreboard here as an obstacle. We're going to go here. So this one, we've had a little fun here, put some gates in the air, and a gate you have to dive through and come around back to start finish, and that's a lap on that course. So yeah, so that's it. I hope y'all enjoy this. I'm really excited about getting feedback on what it feels like, and if it feels like you have what it feels like for you, and if you feel like this can recreate what it feels like to fly your quadcopter. All right, let's take another quick look at one more scene. This is the scene I mostly fly on. It's called Race Day. Now, this is a super low polygon. This is going to run fast on almost any computer. And we'll go in, and I've set up the multi-GP 2021 Global Qualifier race on here as an example. So before we get going, we'll kind of go over here and take a look at... you can see every course has a scoreboard in it, and so you can always see your times on the scoreboard as you fly. This course is actually a really fun course. I've really just set it up for the game, but this is what MultiGP is going to use for qualifying pilots into their championship this year. And one thing I really like about tuning for track racing is it's something I actually do a lot, and I can make sure that the way I fly on here is very analogous to the way I fly in real life, and the mistakes I make are very much the same. I notice on here a lot that I do the same types of mistakes I make in real life, which is I a lot of times find myself flying through gates backwards. That's a corkscrew element. We'll try that one more time. All right. Well, I'm messing up here for my intro, but I'm trying to talk and fly at the same time. So we'll uh, we'll put this. I'm gonna put this up and let you guys take a look at this. And I'm really excited to know what your thoughts are. So what's next for Flight First FPV? Flight First FPV, I got the name simply because I wanted to place the experience of flight as the first and foremost important thing in this. You can have all the great multiplayer features and social features and all sorts of stuff you want, but if you don't feel like you're flying a real quadcopter, it's kind of all for nothing. So that's where the name comes from. I just want to focus on making the feeling of flight the foremost objective of the game. You can see the graphics aren't, we don't have a whole lot of fancy graphics or quadcopter models or anything like that. Everything is really just the aerodynamic model and enough scenery and features of like track racing to allow you to experience that and have fun. So one of the next projects I'm working on is going to be really a deep dive into rates. I want to make sure you can take your rates from Betaflight or whatever you fly and bring them into the game, and it feels exactly right. I have a few complaints right now that the rates don't feel exactly right, and people can have to tweak them a little bit. So that's kind of the next project. But beyond that, I'm really excited about just constantly improving the aerodynamic model, and past that, I have all sorts of ideas for this. So that's it. I really want you to give it a try. Go to FlightFirstFPV.com. Sign up for an account, and there's two different installer options. There's a Windows installer, and there's also a portable installer that just lets you unzip it to a folder and let the auto patcher just download the patch into whatever folder you want. Other OSs are going to be coming soon, Mac, and I'm even looking into iOS and Android. But yeah, I want you to give it a try and let me know what you think. All right, guys, have a good one.